Office is evolving, becoming simpler, more collaborative, more powerful. Its icons are evolving too, into a visual language that reflects the powerful simplicity and harmony of the Office apps. Unique symbols that adapt to their context. Across platforms, across devices. It's a new look at color. Lighter, more vibrant hues, but still so familiar. A connected visual system that speaks to a faster, more intelligent, frictionless experience, designed to reflect the more connected, collaborative way we work today. It's the look of the new Office.
All right, it is Friday, and that means, Doug, it's Office Flash Friday.
It is Office Flash Friday.
Why is it special, Doug? Why is it
today special? Is episode 100, and unfortunately, the producer who's been with us almost the entire time, Emily McMiller, is not with us today, but she has a great reason. Emily and Jeff are getting married on Saturday, so it's a special Office Flash Friday. Emily, our producer, is getting married. Corey Buzzle, mod work architect from Minneapolis, has jumped in back, and he's helping us do scene cuts and all sorts of stuff today, and he has never produced a show, so he gets to produce episode 100.
So we'll call this one the one where Emily got married.
The one where Emily got married. That's This is good of a name for the episode as we get going on. Todd, you're up first. What are you talking about today?
All right, man. So I've got it's still May, right? So it's May 31st, so I can still talk about the May 2019 Power BI desktop capabilities. It's all Power Platform today. Got a little bit of GitHub and Teams love as well. What do you got?
I have Teams, SharePoint conference, some really cool security announcements about MCAS, I think that's probably enough. Security, Teams, SharePoint conference announcements, all sorts of goodness, including a really cool Teams Azure pipeline integration discussion.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Okay.
So awesome stuff, but you, sir, are up first live from St. Louis.
Let's rock and roll, man. So, all right, Power BI Desktop, May 2019. It's a big one, as per usual. I think the biggest...
and then we're just going to do live call-outs to Corey backstage. So, Corey, you want to queue up 7 and then cut over while Todd does his little discussion on this point. Ooh, perfect. Look at that. He's a pro already.
Nice job, Corey. The one where Corey got his producer legs. Love it. All right. So this is the biggest feature I'd say this month is definitely the performance analyzer pane. So why is this useful? This is not super exciting if you're a report consumer, but it's super exciting if you're a developer reports and models, because what this enables you to do basically, if you're a developer, we do this thing called debugging. We set breakpoints. We do console.write lines. And all of those things to figure out how things are performing. Of course, there's better ways to do it than what I just said. It was just a joke, so don't throw things at me. So basically what you do is you open up your performance analyzer pane. We have yet another pane inside the desktop, and you start recording, and then you do the interactions you want to measure. And what you get back is a measurement of how long things took in milliseconds. So you can see here, I changed a slicer. So that was the thing that I did, right? And then all of these other things responded to the change of the slicer, and I'm able to drill in and see what's going on. So for example, I'm able to drill into this metric here. How long did the DAX query take? How long did the visual display take?
Oh, that's wonderful for performance understanding. That's just flat out great.
Because it's very easy in Power BI to do things that are, I guess, quite interactive. Responsive.
Let's cut back and talk about that. Like I did that. That was one of the first times you and I met when I had done something really dumb with data, if you recall. And that DAX inquiry was essentially taking every row and striking through an internet, all the rows of an internet IP database.
Right.
This would have busted it wide open and told me what I was doing wrong.
Exactly. So there was ways to do this before, but they were pretty nerdy ways, and they're not very friendly. This is just something you turn it on, you use it, and it points you right to where you want to spend your time optimizing. So it's the equivalent of what a database administrator would do to do run the execution plan on a query.
So if you don't have a friend Todd to just call and tell you what you did wrong, you can use this tool in order to understand your performance.
I never put it that way. I would say here's an opportunity where I can help you.
Yeah, a self-service opportunity. That's awesome.
Exactly. So that's pretty exciting. Some more improvement to the filter pane. I think making this more and more really a first-party option for filtering. So I'm able to move my cards around and sort them rather than just us forcing that upon you. I like that. Also, theming. This is a big deal. So a lot of people get a lot of value out of themes to bring the corporate standards to your report. I can now theme the items that are inside the filter pane and make that more part of a natural part of the report rather than this other thing that's kind of hanging off over to the right. So nice. I'm a big fan of that. Keyboard navigation in the matrix and table. Obviously, why that would be useful would be for things like especially kind of expanding and collapsing, really kind of the pivot table-y type things that you would want to do on top of a matrix where I think this would be useful. Let's see. I'm going to not go over all of this because it's a big one, because there's also some really cool custom visuals I want to talk about. So the key influence visual, we're continue to invest in that. I've talked about that in some broadcasts past. You can go back and check out some of the demos that I did on that. But what we've done here is we've also enabled binning support. So in this particular example, I want to see what influences my NSAT, my satisfaction of my customer, to be 7. Now what we're doing is we're taking things that are continuous, like a unit cost, and we're binning those things. So we're saying the number one thing that influences NSAT to be 7 is when the unit cost of an item is basically in the $152 range, which is pretty nice. So I don't have to do any of that data prep ahead of time in order to make this useful. The tool will automatically do binning on the things that you care about, which I think is just awesome.
Do you remember how much work we had to do to draw even preliminary conclusions like this back in college?
Yeah, it's a lot of work, man.
Right?
I mean, the tools were not useful. We're not very user-friendly.
It's crazy, and we need it because of the amount of data we're gathering now. There's no doubt that the amount of data makes these things necessary. I mean, I don't want to. I'm just saying, like, I would have killed for some of these things in my original classes.
Oh no, it's absolutely amazing. Yeah. So yeah, totally with you, man. Some more formatting options on the key influences visual and mobile support. So we're really investing. And again, I think calling this a visual is just not doing it justice. It's a key influencers a solution. Right? Let's call it a solution. Let's call it what it is. It's a visual, yeah, but it's got machine learning and stats built into it. It's pretty amazing. So on the modeling side, you can now turn off the auto date tables.
Thank goodness. Now, at first, I was frustrated by this because I wanted auto date tables. And then once you trained me how to do proper date tables, I was irritated by it. So I guess it's nice that you have the choice to seatbelt up and have an automatic date range applied for lensing, but it's also nice to be able to not do that.
This one's a hard one to decide, like what should be the default. I think in the last year or so, it's always been on by default, which, to your point, probably annoyed half the people and half the people loved it.
Well, I think, and we should probably talk about what this means for people who don't know, right? I mean, if you're going to display dates over some kind of time horizon or a playback or anything else, you have to have a scale against which to lens it, right?
Yeah, if you're doing any kind of date reporting whatsoever inside of really any tool or database, the first thing you need to do is you need to have a good date table, right? Yep. Because not all of your data is going to represent the calendar appropriately, right? I might have days where nothing happens. I might have days where I have a disproportionate amount of things going on. How do I roll those things up into my corporate and my otherwise, calendar hierarchies?
Yeah, in my early days, I would produce reports, and it was like they were all smashed together as though there was no gaps, even though like weekends had nothing going on, right?
That's right.
That's probably not what you want, unless it is.
It's not what you want unless it is. That's right.
That's right.
So I like that we've done this. Some updates for the ArcGIS map. Mapbox update where I can, because the way it was before was basically I couldn't see. So in this example, right, on the left, I can't really see New Jersey very well through the Mapbox, but now I can choose to have that on top. So this might be just bringing you to where, like, hey, there is this thing called a Mapbox, and you can use it. So it's a very useful visual, and you can also update the legend there. Let me jump down because there's some other a lot of mapping updates this month. This guy right here is very cool, and I think we did a disproportionate amount of information on this ValQ visual. Very useful for financial planning and for the CFO to look at impact and things like that, and drill downs across different dimensions of data, and also doing what ifs, right? So it talks about doing sales forecasting, headcount planning, supply chain optimization. So here's my overall over on the left. I want to drill down to consumers and then my region. So I jumped across a couple different dimensions there, and then being able to even drill in and do a what if, right? So I can pick. So this is a simulation what if scenario in this example where I'm drilling down to a person named Chris, and I'm looking at a variance metric here. But I can go into this what if scenario and say, what if he did a little better, or what if he had more variance than I expected? How's that going to affect everything downstream? So this is this is pretty robust. This is another visualization I'd put in the category of a solution. Just like the key influencers visual.
You know what I wonder is that if you applied that to some of the telemetry coming off of like Flow and everything, and you looked at, I wonder if certain roles process things faster. Corey and I were having a discussion around like true BPM analytics and process analytics, like end process analytics. It seems like it would be a good visualization solution to help understand the nature of that.
Dead on. Actually, wow, I didn't think of that. I think that's actually pretty brilliant. I think
we were just gamifying this morning. Hey, we have Power BI, we have all these tools, and is Flow really a BPM tool? It is and it isn't, right? It's a business process automation tool. But as far as management, to really say, what if I had 2 more, payroll clerks or something like that? But I wonder if you couldn't skunk work it together with something like that. It'd be interesting to see.
I think you absolutely could, right? It's just a matter of putting some work into it and seeing what there. But I think these visuals and all that data is there in the graph. It's all there, right?
Yeah. Interesting.
So that's a great call out. I love that. This is another cool one. The Advanced Graph by Zoom Charts, who just does a bunch of cool stuff. It's a really good way to visualize graph information that's available. Tons of custom visuals this month. So check those out. I'm not going to go over each one of these. We have a lot.
Because that would be our show if you did. My goodness.
It would be the Power BI Desktop Edition.
Yeah, exactly.
So Essbase connector, native support for import for MDX. That's pretty cool. Doug, look at this. Intune Data Warehouse connector.
I know. I'm super excited about that one.
I knew you would be. Yeah. So that's exciting. Some other new connectors. This one I thought was cool. This is just an optimization. Again, kind of, from an end user perspective, the advantage here is going to be more performant reports. So, and actually, I didn't even realize some of this was going on. Where let's say you click on a slicer, or you click on a visual element that's going to cross filter everything else, and then you decide to move on to something else. Well, now we're going to actually cancel the first thing, right? We'll call them obsolete queries, and we'll move that on. So that should offer just a better user experience. So
nice.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so that's Power BI Desktop. Get it, love it, build some things. It's awesome. This one I'm excited about as well. So when we talk about the Power BI service and delivering solutions to customers, to your customer, right, in your organization, right? So you're a builder of models and reports. How do you deliver those things out through Power BI? Well, it's through apps, right?
Yep.
So apps are the packaging up of data sets, models, and visuals. Now, in the past, the way that we've done navigation inside of reports and dashboards has all really been around the page model, right? So you have these different report pages inside of Power BI Desktop that you add at the bottom, and it's kind of Excel-like. You have your tabs at the bottom. We're kind of blowing that up, and we're allowing you to customize the navigation how you see fit. And you can even do some hierarchy things here to make the initial navigation
that's really nice.
less overwhelming. So if you look at this guy, let me kind of zoom in here.
You're almost folderifying those and putting a nice little drop-down nav.
Bingo, right? So I have my overview, and then I have opportunity and profitability. Well, under here, I might have, each one of those, I might have like 5, 6, 7 different pages. Whereas if I'm a first-time user of this app or this report, that might be a little overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
And it might be noise, right? So this gives me the ability to come in and customize this.
No, go ahead.
Now, it's not only that, but I have this guy at the bottom, like how to use this app, which is just a video, right? So I can embed that in here, and I can have a video instructions on how to use this report. So again, further customizing the navigation for your app, making it more like an app and less just like a big pile of pages.
So I'm a super big fan of this because we get access to resources internally. I mean, my chat changed recently as a manager, and I have all these solutions that are delivered to me, and I'm supposed to be encyclopedic on all these different like dashboards and everything else. And I can tell you now that I've seen this, although I wasn't aware what was doing it, that there's at least one of the internal solutions has moved to this model, and it's the one I was saying to somebody, how come they can't all be like that one? And so it turns out they will be able to be like that one.
Right. Oh, that's great.
So I'm super excited about that. I'm already seeing internal use from some of those capabilities. So that's cool.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
going through a little bit about how to do that, you can set up a logo and an app theme, again, to kind of make this more appy. So I'm pretty excited about this, and I think you should be too. All right. So Doug, I'm looking at the clock here. I have a lot more.
Okay, it is episode cutback. It's episode 100. We're just gonna go long. So I'm not even sorry about that. It's been 2 weeks. Tough luck.
I'm not going to be able to do that.
Oh, you can't. You're gonna run. You're gonna just bolt off stage again, but I can go long.
Fair enough. All right, so all right, I'm gonna keep rocking and rolling. See, we just play ad hoc here. This is how agile we are here in the MTCs. All right, so the Power BI report server May 2019. I'm not gonna go through all these. Basically, we've probably talked about most of these on the show in the past because these are the things that are coming to the Power BI service very incrementally that get packaged up and shipped over to report server. Tons of different. I mean, look at how long the reporting list there is. Showing dates as hierarchy, and then the modeling capabilities. So, if you're using report server on-prem, operationalize the quarterly update with the desktop companion. Here's your update. So happy update day. All right. Now this one bleeds into the behind-the-scenes tech. Power BI, if you know it from a technology perspective, you know that it's really based on some technology that has always been shipped in SQL Server called Analysis Services Tabular Models. So we've released the CTP3 Community Technology Preview of SQL Server 2019 Analysis Services. So if this is a lot of enterprise BI scenarios, many BI scenarios from an enterprise perspective that have Power BI on the front end, have Tabular on the back end. So that's why this is super relevant. The big things that we're adding are dynamic format strings and calculation groups. And what this basically is allowing you to do is dynamically, I'll kind of show an example here. Here's a good example of currency, dynamic currency. So if I'm doing dynamic currency exchange and I want to dynamically format that, well, the way that we format our numbers in US dollars is going to be different than GBP, euros, whatever. Yeah. So I'm going to be able to bring that in as a piece of data and then dynamically format my data elements on the fly. So this is pretty cool. Just another feature that's coming there. So definitely check this out. A lot of new stuff coming in SQL Server 2019. All right. I'm going to hop over to paginated reports. We've been having this thing called New Feature Friday from Chris Finland on the paginated reports. Basically, what we're allowing you now is when you're sending attachments as subscriptions, we now have more options for format, right? So now we have PowerPoint, Excel, Word, CSV, and XML. So no matter what you want as your attachment in your subscription, you now have it. And I can imagine people coupling this with, let's say we do CSV. And let's say I want to create some weird solution with Flow where I check my inbox for my CSV file, I save it off, and I do something with it with Flow, and I send it off to somebody else. You could kind of create some interesting solutions, I think, there as well with these subscriptions. We've also increased the size of the attachment size to 25 megs. So I think that's a big deal. I can't recall what it was before, but I imagine if it was less than 25 megs, it wasn't that big. So 25 megs is probably pretty helpful for you.
Yep.
All right.
Sure.
So, all right. The general availability of the new Canvas model for Designer, for PowerApps. This is super cool because basically what this is allowing you to do is, as a designer, this reminds me of Power Query and Power BI where I'm visually interacting with my data. I'm basically doing the same thing here where I'm visually interacting with my data interactively. And you notice that the animated GIF here is allowing me to kind of bring a new column in, drag and drop. I'm actually seeing the data live in my designer, which makes it just so much easier to kind of understand the results of the changes that I'm making in my code, in my PowerApps code. So this is a big deal. This designer is now generally available. Go ahead and check that out. From an ALM perspective inside of the Power Platform, this is on the PowerApps blog, but it really spans the Power Platform to Flow as well. Because what we're doing is we're allowing you to now bring in into existing solutions, flows, and PowerApps. So that really helps you when you've already have a solution or you already have a Power App and or a flow. that wasn't created as part of the solution, I can now bring that into the fold of application lifecycle management and leverage it there. What this also allows you to do, the other kind of consequence of this in a good way, is the fact that I can now source control those things, right? Because when I create the solution, I end up with a zip file. I can take that zip file, put it under source control. Now that it includes my PowerApps and my flows that were previously not being managed in such a way from an ALM perspective.
Very
so
nice.
if you care about, if you guys have robust solutions out there from a PowerApps and Flow and Power Platform perspective, this is I think this is a very much needed application improvement. Now I think you mentioned you have some things in Teams around Azure pipelines. I'm going to talk about a little bit.
Yeah, you hit the GitHubs, and then we'll just transition straight over to pipe, because I think that's your last one, right? And then we'll go over to pipelines. Yeah, it's a perfect transition.
And Doug, just for your knowledge, I'll stick around for a couple minutes after, and then I'm going to probably head out before.
Yeah, you can just sort of vanish from the scene.
But Doug,
green screen, exit stage left.
I want to wish you a happy 100th show.
Same to you, sir.
This has been so fun. I couldn't believe it's 100. My wife even sent me a congratulatory text this morning. Have a good 100 show.
It is a milestone, and the audience is going consistently over it. So clearly, all of you out there find some kind of value in it. We obviously moved over to Medium and YouTube from our blogging platform.
Yep.
So Todd's been in charge of that, and I sort of run the AV side of this show, and we've learned things and tried to share as much as we can over the years. And we're trying to push down a little bit as we head into summer to grow the audience, although that's never been our primary metric. Right. It's always been about delivering value to the people who care about staying current, because Todd and I always hear people say it's hard to keep up. Can you distill the news for us?
You know what? I'll just put a link right now and say, we've created some Office Flash Friday stickers. I wasn't planned, so hopefully this doesn't bite me in the behind. But tweet at Doug and I on Twitter, and we'll send you some stickers.
Hit us up. We'll send them out. There you go. Yeah. And look at Corey's already pro with the buffers. My goodness, wow. Right? So look at that, right?
So put them on your
so device. There it is. We are going to expand based on Azure Flash News, and we're going to start sending it out over, so you can listen to us on podcast as well.
Yeah.
So we're going to start sending it out over that, and then we'll probably, toss it over multiple streams out over Mixer and maybe some YouTube Live. So we're going to play around with media streams we had in the summer and different ways to do it. You'll always be able to join via Teams Live broadcast as well, because we just love that, and the experience has been very, very positive overall. So we truly appreciate you guys tuning in. It's why we do it. And so Todd has, as always, it is super fun to do the show, and it's a forcing function for Todd and I to lean in and understand what is the impact of this changes to our customers, right? And we try and keep that cadence as fresh as we can. So
sorry about that little segue there, but
no, that's good, because we don't know how long you're going to stick around with us today, because it is one of those things. All right, so talk about GitHub. Let's cut back over.
So
drop that buffer and we'll cut.
We now have, obviously Microsoft made that acquisition, I guess, about a year ago now. It seems like it's been longer, but I think it's been less than a year still at this point, where we've added the Teams integration, which is great. So what does that bring you? It brings you a new tab where I can start to look at my issues and my pull requests without having to leave my Teams environment. We have a GitHub's bot, right, where I can get my list of repositories, subscribe, unsubscribe. I can do some searching for issues, things like that. I can even add comments and close and reopen issues. So I think a lot of people use it for those kinds of things. Like, all right, what issues do I have? Can I just go ahead and close that out right now without having to hop out into another environment or crash out, as you like?
It's so nice, right? I mean, it really is.
And then
go ahead.
And then the last one is really around did I lose it? Notifications. Oh, here we go. Notifications that I would like to call out, where I'm going to get pull requests and pushes and issues, those kinds of things, just push straight into my channel. So I could manage my entire repository potentially from a team, which I think is just peachy.
So this is let's cover. This is wonderful because it really lets us embrace the team support of developers as a productivity and work group community, right? Yeah. So I'm going to slide over, and Todd, if you can cut to the next, or sorry, Corey, if you can cut to the next one, and then kind of flip it around for Todd and I guess, right? So there we go. And then and if you can queue up 8, let's go full screen on this one, because this is the announcement from the Teams team around Azure Pipelines support app as an app for Microsoft Teams. And so if you scroll down through it, you'll notice that basically you can do the pipeline integration. And Todd, you can get all of your notifications around your build stages directly within the team channel. And they had integrated adaptive card support. So you can actually do approval of the stages directly within the team channel. Okay, so cut back. Now that is pretty spectacular and awesome.
Yeah.
Don't you think? I mean, I was like blown away by that.
In GitHub, then use Azure Pipelines to deploy my code to production.
I know.
My team channel.
You can do all of that workflow directly from within the team.
Pretty cool. Pretty darn cool.
But wait, there's more. Right? So we had a bunch of announcements, and they did a roll-up for it, and I did it under in case you missed it, at Build. There were all these amazing Teams announcements out at Build, and so they did a roll-up post. And if you have not gone through and looked at all the amazing announcements that happened out there, you really, really do need to go look at that. The Teams as a platform story was so strong. So there's these amazing that goes over it, the whole partner center, the managed application stuff for Teams, the new Graph API, the new, transparent single sign-on for embedded application provisioning and stuff. And so you can cut back. So there's all these amazing announcements around it. And then basically we're already seeing people jump in and release solutions that are built on top of that framework to do amazing things. Things like some of the stuff they GA'd is now what they're using to do solutions like the Azure pipeline, the stuff we were talking about. Right? Without those capabilities, you can't have that.
Right.
And I'm seeing, I'm a huge. Are you a mind map person? I've never asked. Like doing mind map.
I do like mind map. Yes.
Yeah. So one of my favorite integrations, we've showcased it before as a partner, is MindMeister, right? And so they have a really cool integration for it. You can embed the maps and teams and do all sorts of stuff like that. But you have to go through this kind of sign up process where you essentially go in, you sign in, you validate your credentials, and you go through. Well, if they take advantage of this new capability, and I'm assuming most of them will, that'll be frictionless. Like you won't have to go through that authentication / dual authorization sequence. Now it's true you only have to do it occasionally or maybe even one time depending on how it's all integrated, but having that stuff just happen transparently, the ease of pulling those third-party solutions in, because it is not just about us. I mean, GitHub is us, yes, but it's not primarily Microsoft. They're operating as a separate entity, right? And so we can pull those third-party solutions in no matter what you're using and tie them in as a fabric. And if those developers want to participate in the Teams ecosystem, this API, the App Store, the dev management, the approval, the Git integration, this makes it real, where you can really build stuff on top of the platform. And so I could not be more excited. And if you're thinking to yourself, hey, I'm an IT person out, this is not too difficult for you to learn. This is like the same jump people made when they started recording macros and going into Visual Basic for applications and made your first maybe Visual Basic developer jump. We're at that foundational stage again. So if you have not leaned in to building and extending platforms, it is fun. It is a creative side of IT that really, and it brings so much business value to your enterprise, be able to pull these lenses and these views in. Lean into the graph, lean into these tools.
A lot of these things, you can provide disproportionate amount of business value for your effort, right? At the grassroots.
What Todd said. You're that way you're this way on the screen. There you go. What Todd said.
It's hard to do when it's not mirrored. It's really weird.
I know. It's because this is all virtual sets and stuff like that, right? Yeah. So you got that one going. Okay.
I'm going to drop. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching our 100th show and really all along with us. Let us know on Twitter if you want some stickers. And I'm going to drop. You're going to keep going. And I hope you have a good weekend.
Hope you do as well. Take care, sir. All right, so I'm going to dive in for a couple of security announcements and things I think are absolutely critical. The first one is Microsoft's CASB, MCAS, now supports shadow IT discovery of across IaaS and PaaS services. So let's cut over to this one for a content standpoint and dive in for a brief minute. So that means you're going to, inside of the Cloud App Discovery reports, you're going to see the discovery of people using those different cloud services, potentially building, who are going through your network component. Okay, so let's cut back. Why is this important? This is important because, hey, I know that you're using maybe unsanctioned SaaS applications, no matter if you love them or not. Maybe they are not appropriate for the kind of information or usage you're doing, or your enterprise says you shouldn't be using solution X. I'm not even going to pick one that you wouldn't want to use. But I will say, if you think you have developers who are using their network access and they have to be able to, or people in your enterprise who are putting things in any one of these clouds, and you're concerned about that, Cloud App Security can now give you a lens into how much data and who is doing those things. Of course, this is the full MCAS. There's an evaluation for it out there. So this is not included in the core Cloud App Discovery components. This is part of the NCAB stuff under Discovered Resources. So it's not part of the SaaS App Discovery portfolio that I saw. I read through as much as I could, so I believe this is part of the full MCAS. But if you have it, if you have the Cloud App Security entitlement and you're not doing either snapshot or firewall integration, go do that. You get this amount of visibility, and you can start really diving in and exerting either reporting control, training controls, or technical controls over those kind of access. So check it out. I think it's a game-changing announcement where it's at. For my education customers, and I know you listen, I know you're out there, I wanted to go and say that there was a release around simplified iOS management for Intune. It was particularly around the Apple VPP integration component for the volume purchase programs, some stuff around the MDM certificate stuff and the MDM server token, all the rest of these things. So a improvement for how schools can manage iOS devices at scale. So check that one out as soon as you have. I would be remiss, even though it's been a little bit, if we didn't touch a little bit on what happened at SharePoint Conference. And so we're going to do that very quickly through a couple of series on top of it. First, we covered at the SharePoint Twin Cities Users Group. So go over to Minnesota SharePoint Users Group and you look at the last session. We dove in on enterprise search. Brian Cowie had me dive in on that one, so I've covered that. I'm not going to go super deep in that, other to say you should review the Microsoft search announcements, internalize and understand that, understand what we're doing with the integration on the Bing search portal, what that means for contextual search within the Office applications and themselves, and we're sort of bringing that search and intelligence factor, ubiquitously across the Office stack. So you should check out those announcements. They're worth a review. I wanted to focus a little bit on the updates to SharePoint admin and migration. First, the multi-geo capability went to GA. So for SharePoint and Office 365 groups, you can now set multi-geo capabilities in targeted residencies. This is important if you have a burden to say that this particular data resides in this particular location. Hopefully that makes sense to you all. So that's exactly what that component means. Now, again, it's up to you to decide regulatorily if it needs a separate legal entity versus geo-residency is sufficient to your regulatory requirements. This is geo-residency. How you do your entity separation still needs to be talked about with your regulatory people. I can't give you guidance on that, but I can tell you this is a huge step forward, and it's releasing a lot of blockers around my enterprises for those things. And so again, for SharePoint Online, for OneDrive multi-geo capability, I was super excited. We can cut full screen on this one, Corey. I was super excited to see the sensitivity labels for SharePoint sites go into private preview, where you can essentially say this site has a label and as a companion service on top of it, we can do sensitivity labels with protection. And so then essentially you can have the two-layered approach that people want to go. So cut backgrounds, what does this mean you can do? It means you can have like the top secret site, anything that goes in there gets automatically labeled and protected. I'll just stop right there. That's great, right? So you don't have to rely on the manual per entity labeling. Now you have this ability to do anything within there gets labeling and or protection, and then you can talk about where you want to go from there. A preview is coming for external access expiration, so you'll be able to set policies. This is the new sharing UI if you haven't seen it, so let's cut over real quickly on top of it. I do like this whole thing. It says, hey, what's the sharing policy engine? What about new and existing users? What about external users? Kind of what do you want to do from a permissioning standpoint? And so then you can say, hey, site access for external guests will automatically expire in X number of days. Now, obviously, if you cut back, there was a way for us to do that before around essentially understanding sharing requests, storing them contextually, doing your own triggers and events on top of it. It was possible to erect or set a solution around this and to retrofit it if you really want to get hands-on with our APIs and build some operational data stores and stuff. This simply operationalizes it and gives you a simple rules engine. You could have done it before using the erector set and Plato approach. Now you have it. You may still need some of those capabilities if you don't like the granularity and the method in which we work. And we're not taking away those APIs and the integration points. So if you want to do that, you may, but this is certainly a really, really big deal for where we want to go. DLP restricted access went into private preview for regulated industries. So you can basically have a whole lot of stuff around control and restricted access from a DLP standpoint, and restricted sharing went into it as well. So you can create rules around, it says, hey, if you want to allow anonymous links, right? But you also want to make sure that it has to go through DLP. So essentially you can have it sort of go into a hold state until scanning hits. So there's a lot of capabilities around that to make sure that you can meet that requirement around no breach potential of something that you're going into. So that got out there. Same for OneDrive restricted access. So a huge number of regulated industry announcements around admin improvements, granular control around sharing, and a whole lot of other stuff. So if you have not stepped back and watched the keynote on top of it, I would strongly suggest you do that from SharePoint Conference, because there is a ton of announcements. Bulk admin actions, site rename for core things. Okay, so there's the security and admin stuff. A lot got announcement. On the intelligent intranet side, if we cut back over to the full screen on top of this one, we announced a whole lot of stuff around SharePoint home sites. And so SharePoint home sites basically allow you to connect in and have these integrated landing page that work with the mega menu navigation framework. There's a whole bunch of new organizations, site design, you get personal space on the intranet, better targeting. Okay, so cut back. What are we doing here? We're trying to make it better to create really dynamic, compelling, linked intranet or major hub sites, not the Microsoft term of that, but just like these core sites, and let you get compelling navigation and visual experiences faster across the board without being a designer. I've gone through design sprints with customers on this and hackathons, and it is amazing how fast you can get a whole bunch of relevant content and then start integrating with some flows, some teams, and some content feed, create a couple of PowerApps for like targeted news creation or a simplified user experience for targeting and classification. You can do all sorts of amazing stuff, give executives kind of a simple upload button if they don't happen to like the traditional applications, and you can route it through someone for approval. So the stack allows you to do really interesting stuff. This allows you to create these amazing, compelling, out-of-the-box experiences and integrate navigation in. So we're trying to say, how do we make people create better-looking content easier? And that's the goal behind this whole framework and capability. Okay, so that is a wrap up for how much time we have this week, and we're like 10 minutes over. So Todd's teams run a whole bunch of Power BI, and he was gone for a couple weeks, so there you go, data people, you're all caught up. Security side for me, biggest thing, go if you have an MCAS entitlement, go check out what they're doing, what they're working for the IaaS and PaaS. Check out all the new Teams announcements on it. Check out the SharePoint stuff. Start leveraging these features and capabilities. Check out your geo-residency requirements for everything else you have going on. I'm going to do a little more next couple weeks at Demo Fest on some of the things that were shown there and a little deeper dive in segments around that. And we will continue, now that Todd's back, because we had to sort of do a catch-up show, our ongoing series of taking the operational data store of Office telemetry service and stuff, bring it together. So next time, we're going to have less announcements next week and more demos from Todd and I, showcasing Todd's work with my data that I assembled, and then going into a couple of things that that we thought were really cool that have happened at the last SharePoint conference and announcements. So that is it. So I'm Doug, signing off for both Doug and Todd. Hope you guys have a great weekend. It looks kind of beautiful here in Minneapolis, so I hope it's nice wherever you are. Be good, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care.